Hello, everyone. You know, it's that time of the week. It's Deploy on Friday. I've got Jim. Jim, have you recovered from last week? Are you healthy?
I'm getting there. Yep, I think I'm there now. Back firing on all
Perfect.
cylinders. Yeah.
How are you doing? How was your week?
Yeah, really good. Really good. It's always nice when you sort of come back from a slow couple of weeks to kick some goals. So yeah, it's feeling good. Yeah.
That's a Aussie expression for those who are not aware. Kicking goals is a AFL term, meaning you're doing well. So we'll provide the vernacular translations as needed. So for those of you who have never seen this show before, this is the show that basically covers the latest news and tech trends relating to Octopus Deploy over the past week. This is hosted every week on Friday, thus the name, by myself and Jim. And we just basically, we're a couple of idiots talking uninformed opinions about a bunch of things. So there you go. But let's get to the news of the week relating to Octopus. So we have a number of things that have been actually happening over the past week. It's actually been pretty exciting. Aside from all the engineering work that's been going on, obviously some of the stuff we can't speak to because it hasn't been shipped yet. But I know that you and I have both seen videos of sneak peeks, that sort of thing, around things that are coming, that are on our roadmap, for example, that are awesome. And I'm really excited by some of the things there. I'm sure you're working on a lot of great stuff too. Is that a fair
Yeah,
assumption?
that is a fair assumption. Yeah, I had some great calls with some customers this week about trying out some of the early release stuff that we're doing.
I know. I hate doing this because you
Yeah.
want to tell the world, but you're like, it's not ready yet. We can't tell anyone yet. So, it's not
I
ready,
need to
but
make
just
myself
be
more
patient.
aware about exactly what we can talk about and what we can't. I don't even
That's right. Well, I mean, if you really need to know, you can just go to our roadmap. And again, if
know.
you're not aware, it is available online. It's at roadmap.octopus.com. And I make the joke, this should be your homepage, but, we've got a bunch of things under consideration. We've got a bunch of things that are planned, and we have a bunch of things that are released. And these are cards. This is using product board underneath the covers. So you can go into one of these things and you can vote what you think are the most important things relative to your workflow. So if you see something on here that is like awesome and super important, you can mark it as critical. In addition to that, you can also submit your own ideas. So by clicking on this button in the top right hand corner, you can go, and this will go straight to the product team, and you can let them know what you think. So make sure you check that out. That's again at roadmap.octopus.com. Anyways, let's get on with the news. We've got a bunch of stuff that we've been publishing, namely around customer stories. And as you can tell, we have a lot of successful customers with Octopus. They use it quite effectively. They do a lot of deployments with our technology, which is fantastic. You want to ship a lot, and you want to ship reliably and consistently and robustly. That's the name of the game when it comes to Octopus. And one of the customers that I wanted to point out is this one, Guestline. They recently did a case study with us. And so Guestline is they're a software company based out of the UK. And what they do is they provide a bunch of software services, and they offer a software product to not only hotel operators, but also guests. So if you're visiting a hotel that they support, the staff that are there are utilizing software supported by Guestline, as well as the POS system or the system you see on TV or tablets is all driven by Guestline software. And the reason why I mention this is because earlier today we had a webinar with them. So this is Matthew Ford from Guestline talking to us about how they use Octopus for doing deployments with, how they do deployments with Octopus. So specifically, they talked a lot about tenants and how they leverage tenants, because they're the sort of quintessential example of how to utilize tenants relative to Octopus in a scenario driven by a software company deploying to high latency networks, unreliable networks. You know how bad internet is at hotels, right? So this is like the perfect example of how to utilize software effectively for the purposes of doing deployments. And so Matthew talked to us about how you can do deployments utilizing these tenants. And he basically went through how they do it at Guestline. And so it's a perfect sort of ancillary thing to our case study, talking about, what a typical deployment process looks like. For example, we went in detail about what what tenants look like and how they work, and we talk a lot about them. We answered a lot of questions as well during the webinar. Anyway, suffice it to say, you'll find this now up on our YouTube channel. We've just published this webinar, and yeah, you can. I'm literally looking the same because it was like a few hours ago. So I got up at 4 a.m. to do this webinar because we want to do it right by the US and UK customers. But yeah, this is now available. You can check it out, and it's up on our YouTube channel, which is awesome.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Matthew. We were talking to him yesterday too about the early access release of we've done some work to make communications and technical more resilient over unreliable networks.
Yes.
So he's getting involved to try that out too, because like you said, it's a perfect environment for exactly the kind of environment you'd face those challenges in.
Yeah, he was talking about how they have targets running Windows 7. They have targets that go down for long periods of time. They also have only certain windows that they can upgrade. So running a hotel, the busiest times are obviously around mealtime, so breakfast, lunch, dinner. So they are the sort of perfect example of how to do deployments in a high contention, high latency sort of environment, etc. So if you want to find out more, you can check out our case study, which is now available up on our site. And they talk a lot about their CI/CD pipeline, for example. And talking about Windows servers and deploying to SQL Server, etc. So it's awesome stuff. And our video is now available up on YouTube, which is fantastic. Moving right along to our blog, Isaac wrote about a new feature we're adding to Octopus called execution timeouts. So this is complementary to anything that is revolving around deployment processes. So step retries was something that we added recently. So step retries we added a few months ago. And this basically, we did a video about this, and we talked a little bit about how this works. So step retries allow you to basically provide a recovery mechanism for failed step execution. So in particular, actions. So if a step fails, and this can be for a variety of reasons. Like, for example, your guest line. You're talking to a remote hotel, and the internet goes down for whatever reason. God forbid, internet goes down at a hotel. A retry step will allow you to obviously retry for a number of times and then fail depending upon that. Execution timeouts complement this, which is a new feature that we've just blogged about. And what this allows you to do is basically determine, hey, has a step actually finished? Like, you can set a timeout period now for this. And this is great if you have long-standing or long-running step actions. And so some examples we cite are like Azure FTP connections or CloudFormation updates, etc. Anything that's long-running that can last for a long period of time has the potential to hang. And so we want to be able to mitigate this by setting what's called a time limit or an execution timeout. And you can do this inside your step configuration. So we show some examples here. So after 3 minutes, this is on the individual step, you can now specify the number of minutes you wish to wait before actually saying, okay, this has clearly failed. And so this is a new feature we're adding to Octopus, and we've just blogged about it now. There are some conditions relative to this. So in particular, there are some steps that you cannot run execution timeouts, and the reason why is nuanced. But basically, sending an email is it's hard to recover from SMTP. So sending an email is a bit gnarly. Manual intervention, obviously, that involves a human. You don't know when they're gonna either approve or decline something. Health checks are tricky. Deploy, release, Kubernetes steps, etc. There are specific things for Kubernetes that we have support for, but these are the cases where execution timeouts are not supported. However, everything else, you'll now see this available as an option inside of your deployment process, which is kind of cool. What do you think about this?
I think it's great. Deployment is such a distributed operation, right? Not only is Octopus itself distributed, but it's often dealing with other distributed systems. And it's just, at some point, things are retrying and trying and trying for so long to all be reliable that you just got to call it a day, right?
Yep, exactly. So yeah, you'll find this up on our blog now. Isaac has written about this now, and so we'll likely do a video about this and talk a little, just show an example of it. But there's a GIF on here that you can check out, and that's execution timeouts, which is fantastic. Another blog post that was published recently was by Andy. He's writing a lot about tenants, multi-tenancy, and tenanted deployments, and this is the latest one he's written. He's written 3 now, called What Are Tenanted Deployments? And so we've been talking a lot about multi-tenancy lately at Octopus because we feel like a lot of folks need to know the story. It's interesting when you take a look at how our customers are using Octopus. When they're a smaller shop, I would maybe argue like less mature in terms of their adoption of Octopus relative to their deployments. They don't tend to use tenants. They kind of overlook the need for using it because they're like, why would I do this? It doesn't make sense. But the more mature folks who have been using Octopus for a long time, they're like, you won't take tenants from my cold dead hands. Like, I love tenants. It's great. So the reason why we're talking about it is because they're trying to build awareness around this. Like, hey, this is a feature we've had for a while. Maybe you should leverage it. And we're adding all kinds of functionality to this as well. I'm going to touch my nose here as I say this, so you're going to see some really cool features come out about this. But Andy writes this blog post, what are tenanted deployments? So if you're all curious, like you've heard the term tenant. It's a long-standing term in software. It's been around for years. But the way that we approach multi-tenancy and the way that we talk about tenants is it depends on a variety of factors. So tenants can refer to, geos relative to a SaaS application, or it can be, slices of your application, for example. So there's a lot of ways to consider how you think about tenants relative to deployments. And so, there are, through this article, Andy talks about the benefits, the problems, etc. If you're all curious about reading this, you can check it out on our blog and find out more about the sort of problems that you can tackle relative to tenanted deployments or deployments in general, utilizing tenants as part of this. So that's another excellent blog post by Andy, and he's just writing up a storm, which is fantastic. This is a call to action that Kit and I put together. This was published yesterday up on our LinkedIn account. Basically, Kit is one of our program managers, and he and I did a quick video about what is happening relative to Kubernetes deployments. So, in particular, we're evaluating a couple of options that we have for doing deployments to Kubernetes. So, one of the ways in which we're looking to do Kubernetes deployments is to support Argo. So, Argo is the sort of way in which a lot of folks consider doing deployments via Kubernetes for management, etc. And we're looking to facilitate that through maybe a couple of options. These are two under consideration options. The first one being where maybe we create this thing called an Octopus agent that runs inside your cluster, and then that would host a variety of components that would then intercommunicate back in with Octopus server for deployments. The second option that we're looking is maybe you're running your own Octopus CD instances yourself, and you want to communicate through that same agent to those remote instances of Argo. These are two different options, and we're considering both. And so this is a post that we made up on LinkedIn to say, hey, we need your feedback. So in particular, we have under our roadmap here, I'll show you, under the consideration tab, these two top items here, Octopus Agent for Kubernetes resource monitoring and deployments, and then Argo CD plus Octopus Agent for Kubernetes resource monitoring and deployments. So these two options are what we are looking at. And what Kit is asking the community is, hey, which one do you think matters to you and why? And does this make sense relative to your deployments? So, obviously we're big fans of supporting technology that's available out there, that's popular, and Argo is certainly in that camp. And so this is a call to action for the community to let us know. So vote with these options down here, or ping Kit directly and let him know. Set up a call. We're happy to chat over Zoom. Let us know what you think is going to work for you for your Kubernetes deployments to your clusters, and we're happy to have that chat.
Yeah, those guys are almost like they're right on the cutting edge of
Yes.
what people can and want to do with complex deployments in complex environments with tenants and all of that sort of stuff while using Kubernetes. It's really exciting stuff. I can't wait to see what comes out of that.
Yeah, it's good. We've been having a lot of great conversations at events like KubeCon. We'll be at KubeCon North America later this year. We were at KubeCon Europe. We were having great conversations with folks there. A lot of people hadn't heard of us. That's okay. We're slow. It's a slow burn basically, but we're trying to convince people like, hey, we do more than just one. We're not a one-trick sort of pony. We do a variety of different target types, a variety of environments. Our model is what stands us out. This fact that we have channels and life cycles and projects and spaces and tenants and all this other great stuff. And then the deployment targets and the processes are almost an aside aspect of it, but it's really the model that's the powerful aspect of it. So anyways, Kit's looking for your feedback. Let us know and go onto our roadmap and vote if you can. So again, if you haven't heard of Argo, you can go check it out there and find out more about it. It's actually pretty cool. HTMX. This is going to replace all your React code there, Jim. So you don't have to learn React anymore. So HTMX, it's about a year and a half old. It came out, I think, during DjangoConf, and it's basically it's a movement afoot to try and get us back to the original premise of what React promised. So when React first was shipped by the folks over at Facebook, a lot of people were obviously cognizant to the fact that this is a framework that allows you to focus on the V of MVC, the view. But then it evolved, and then it basically morphed, and so the MVC relating to React, they started to adopt the sort of component aspect of it, so it became more than just the V. It became the C, etc. There's a bunch of other things as well. And so what HTMX is trying to do is trying to basically provide you a means of doing those similar types of view transitions, etc., that are largely popularized by React and other things. There's also a spec associated with view transitions that's coming. But HTMX is basically giving you access, as it says here, to AJAX, CSS transitions, WebSockets, server-sent events, etc., directly in HTML using attributes, running on the server, and is dependency-free, extensible, and only 14K. And so this is a strong competitor to React. And the reason why I mention this is because they've recently joined the GitHub Accelerator program. So HTMX is not new, but the fact that they've recently joined GitHub Accelerator is. And so I think this is great. There's going to be a lot of work being done towards HTMX2, and you can see there are already some very prominent and highly public organizations and startups, etc., that are utilizing it, the accelerator, that is. And so being part of this, I think, is going to help ensure their success. So I'm a huge fan of this announcement, and I think HTMX is certainly an interesting project to keep track of.
Needs more TypeScript.
Needs more TypeScript, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Interesting.
So we don't use HTMX. We use React for our UI. I know that the web teams, the UI team's fans of React, but this is definitely a strong alternative. And
I understand where they're coming from, though. Like, React's a great view engine. It's always needed something else added to it to sort of be, But it's those the M and the
MVC.
The M and the C have sort of slowly bled in over the years.
I know. I mean, look, React took us in some ways kicking and screaming to a good model, but I think what HTMX is trying to do is get us back to the model that was espoused back in 2004, which is far simpler than what it is today. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a good thing. Anyways, moving on with the news. So 17.7, I know you're a Rider user, so you can just, ignore this. But if you're utilizing Visual Studio 2022, 17.7 is available. And in addition to all the new features that they've added, 17.8 preview is also available, by the way, incidentally. But this is a blog post that highlighted some of the performance improvements, namely around things like F5, the light bulb feature, which is that thing that everyone ignores in Visual Studio, gives you like fixed formatting features, etc. Memory consumption for the spell checker, IntelliSense into optimization. The dependencies tree, which I didn't think was a problem inside of VS 2022, but I use this feature a lot. The dependencies tree allows you to basically navigate within your dependencies, your assemblies that are bound into your project if you're using .NET, obviously. So these and other features around performance have gotten a lot better, and so this blog post basically highlights those improvements. So if you're all curious as to what's shipped, because 17.7 is now available, in terms of performance, this blog post highlights those capabilities. So just thought I'd mention that in case you're at all curious. Our friends over at BuildKite have published this recent article. This is from Mel Kalfus, who's a developer advocate at BuildKite. BuildKite, good, strong Aussie company, just like us. So this is applying SRE principles, or SRE, I guess, if people want to call it that, principles to CI/CD. So SRE principles are, so site reliability engineers. These principles revolve around a bunch of various other acronyms, and how you can apply these to your CI/CD pipelines, I think, is an interesting sort of testament to how far we've come thinking about these pipelines. And so Mel has done a great job of including a variety of memes and GIFs, and I'm a huge fan of that. So when looking at the definition of SRE, especially how Google defines it, and talking about some of the tenets that are there, not Octopus tenets, but tenets relative to underpinning the SRE, it really comes down to, how they define things like service level objectives and indicators, etc., and how those can be applied relative to pipelines. And so if you're thinking about those and you're wanting to apply that knowledge set that you've built up around practices involving SRE principles, etc., you can think of those in terms of CI and CD and the pipelines that are applied within. So these are just like any other software project. You have to consider these things, right? Like, what is your performance relative to this? And I mean performance in terms of like reliability, uptime, etc. As you know well, Jim, pipelines can be really gnarly. I mean, we have some pretty gnarly pipelines ourselves at Octopus. So getting these to be stable, not only fast, but also robust is a challenge. And so you can look at this as a way of applying those practices when considering CI/CD.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about our pipeline in particular, but I often have that image of a Rube Goldberg machine in my head when I'm deploying pipelines.
Yep, there's definitely a lot of that. I like the fact that Mel has mentioned OpenTelemetry and some alternatives for observability and tracing and monitoring and data visualization. I might chuck in Grafana here, for example, but OpenTelemetry is a specification that defines the sort of things that you do around logs, metrics, etc. We support OpenTelemetry internally within Octopus itself, so it allows you to set up a correlation ID and then trace that through the system as well. So lots of stuff there. That's definitely something that you should take into account when looking at sort of metrics relative to this. So it's a good article talking about how you can apply those same principles to CI/CD, which I think is great. Another article that I saw, this is from the folks over at Docker, and so they're obviously promoting containers. 5 benefits for a container-first approach to software development. This is pretty much the self-explanatory article. I agree with everything that's on here. The only thing I disagree with is the order. So they talk about how there are 5 cases to be made for using containers. They mention faster developer onboarding and a proved productivity. If you're a developer, these are 1 and 2 easily for me. There are some ones that are probably a bit iffy in definition, like fewer bugs. Really? Okay. Maybe. But consistent and reliable performance relative to container execution, that is absolutely true. These are all the things that are espoused for utilizing containers. And so it definitely gives you a works on my machine case in case of containers. This one is not as well understood, SBOMs. So software bill of materials relative to containers, relative to the images that you're running. You can promote these as part of your established processes around these things. But software bill of materials, this is an evolving field here, but I think it's important to mention, and they do mention it here relative to that. So the reason why I mention this is if you're looking to move to containers, but you're having it, you're finding it a hard sell within your organization, this is a good article to cite as to why you want to move towards this, a container-first approach towards software dev. So this is from Ben Cotton over at Docker, and I thought this was an excellent article to mention. Of course, we already prescribed to this, so I'm not selling.
Really drunk the Kool-Aid on that one. Yeah,
that's right. We use a lot of containers. In fact, we publish a lot of containers to Docker Hub. As I've said before, you can go to hub.docker.com, search for Octopus. You'll see a bunch of images that we have there as part of that.
I do. Containers are one of my favorite things that have happened in the last 10 years, I reckon, though. I don't know,
yeah.
10 years?
Oh, well, containers, they were first in Linux, right? And then they got pulled out, and then people saw them as advantageous, and they've been around for at least a decade.
2013. There you go.
Yeah.
10 years this year. Happy birthday, Docker.
That's right. New Terraform integrations with ServiceNow, GitHub, Confluent, VMware, Cisco, and more. So these are being updated. We, in fact, use some of these providers. Namely, the GitHub provider we use ourselves. So GitHub has recently updated its provider. And also Actions. So GitHub has This is the sort of premise here. The GitHub Actions and pipeline template for Terraform Cloud implementations, CI/CD pipelines, best practices for Terraform Cloud. This is something that they've recently added, but we utilize a provider for that, which is great. Having a provider for these systems is awesome. But if you're at all curious as to what's available here, this article goes through it. So you can see the various providers that have been recently published and or updated. I don't use Cisco anymore. Back in the day, if this was 1995, I'd be really excited, but of course Terraform wouldn't exist. But these and other sort of solutions are available there, and yeah, definitely stuff worth checking out. So more integrations, more improvements, more awesome with Terraform. Podman is a tool that is really useful for folks who are managing containers, pods, Kubernetes, images, etc. Recently, they've announced a new shell. So Podman SH is a login shell that they've just announced. This is with Podman 4.6. And it's basically a login shell that allows you to utilize the container management capabilities of Podman. So Podman SH allows you to basically target this via the terminal, which is awesome. Give me text, UI, what is it? TUI before UI, or what is it? Text before UI. Just give me the textual version first before I start drawing pretty pictures on top. So admins will be able to use this. They'll be able to obviously run script commands through this, so they'll be able to automate a lot of this functionality. And so if you're a fan of Podman and you're looking for something to use relative to your automation scripts, possibly Octopus, for example, this would be something that you could check out. And so they talk a little bit using some examples of how to manage your containers, your pods, etc. via this new tool. So this is now available to us, which is awesome. So that's up at podman.io. Some minor updates here as well around GitHub. I seem to find that the GitHub updates these almost as frequently as the TypeScript and VS Code teams. So issues and projects are this sort of 1-2 punch combination you see a lot with updates relative to GitHub. They're making a huge push in projects in particular. Some unnamed, those who shall not be named solutions are getting a run for their money. So GitHub issues have been updated, so you can now, for example, slice various projects by a certain field. So you can do lookups based on labels or assignees, which is great for project management. Updates to issue forms. So namely, you can define now issue template YAML form definitions. So if I take a look at this here, so this is, you can now define an issue template for example, like a bug. So this is a YAML description that allows you to define this template for issues. And not only that, you can also annotate inside of that description various other aspects as well that will appear up in the UI. This is wonderful because I utilize templates quite a bit in GitHub. They're super useful. And yeah, definitely something worth checking out. If you're not using templates inside your GitHub projects, you're really missing out in terms of some productivity wins for your repos. Some updates also for projects as well. Just a minor update, but as I said, they're constantly updating these things, so that's great to see. Another update. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
I was just saying I love a good template. Like actually a good template really helps.
That's right. Yeah, we have templates across a number of our repos. They're really effective because they lay out the landscape, if you will, for new issues or other things like bugs, etc. You can delete the things that you may want to not include, etc. So it really does provide kind of like nice guardrails for submitting them. Secret scanning supports on-demand token validity checks. This is something that actually Octopus Deploy supports. So GitHub Advanced Security is a pluggable service for GitHub. So what this does is if you have an API key, for example, for your service, you can define the format for that API key and then tell GitHub about it so that when you have an inadvertent check-in where you accidentally push a change to, say, a public repo, and inside of that code change, that PR you've got, say, for example, an API key inadvertently, it will automatically decline or delete that PR and notify you automatically that that has been compromised. And then it will also, if need be, revert or disable the API key automatically. So this is a pluggable platform that GitHub supports, and Octopus Deploy is a member. So we will actually detect if you accidentally leak an API key for Octopus to GitHub, and we will notify that. And so what this is a feature will allow you to do this on demand. So if we take a look at this will tell you whether or not this is still in place, but just looking at the screenshot here. So this is basically a screenshot of a service that you can say whether or not a secret is currently active or not, and you can do this on demand now. So you don't have to do a PR and see whether or not this is in effect. But basically, if I inadvertently submit an API key, for example, they use an example here like Adafruit.io, GitHub has confirmed that this secret is active, and so you can say you'll give you remediation steps, etc., if need be. So this is nice. I really like this, and I am a huge fan. I've only accidentally done this once in my career, where I've actually done this, and GitHub actually caught it, and it was a PAT. So I had a personal access token for GitHub that I accidentally put into a PR, and it immediately shut it down and disabled the PAT, which I thought was awesome. I immediately had that panic. When I got the email from GitHub, I had a panic sensation. I was like, oh my God, what did I do? And then I looked at my code change. And I was like, oh, I accidentally leaked a pack, but it was fine. It was automatically revoked. So I like features like this. This is good.
I was lucky enough to do it before they had that feature.
Fantastic. Woo, what do I do now? Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
How do I delete Git history? Wait.
That's right. Good luck.
Yeah.
Yep. So our friends over at JetBrains are marching ahead with Space, which is their SaaS solution for project management collaboration relative to software development. I'm a fan of Space. I like it a lot. I think competition in this is badly needed in this space. Pardon the pun, but you know what I mean. So Space is their solution for doing this, and they published their roadmap. So they're adding a bunch of features to Space, primarily around how they do the workflow around issues, so issues and issue management around projects, etc. Integration with obviously their IDs. So you being a Rider fan, this might be something that you might be interested in. Of course, IntelliJ is going to get the #1 spot in this sort of priority list, but other IDs that they support, Goland, Rider, IntelliJ, for example, would certainly fall into this camp. Integration with external issue trackers as well. So Jira issues, for example, Jira being the sort of canonical example that people the solution that shall not be named, Jira, is kind of like used everywhere. They're going to offer also a similar integration with UTrack, which is their solution for feature requests that JetBrains provides. If you submit any issue related to a JetBrains product, you'll see UTrack everywhere for that. That's the solution that they built and have. So new roles and integration with TeamCity, etc., etc. So lots of features there that they're adding. Git hosting, code reviews, another capability as well. They talk about automation and CI/CD, talking about packages, issues, lots and lots of stuff there. So if you're at all curious at looking at their roadmap, you can go check it out. This was recently published around what's coming relative to Space. Have you had a chance to kick the tires with Space at all?
No. Try and stay out of project management tools where I can.
That's actually probably a smart idea. But yeah, Space and other projects I think are interesting. They're definitely something that is important.
Yeah.
I meant to include this earlier. HashiCorp Cloud Platform Vault Secrets extends Secret Sync to GitHub Actions. What this is if you ever use HashiCorp Cloud Platform, this is basically their hosted solution for a variety of capabilities, including Terraform and Vault, etc., etc. They've recently added a new capability that will automatically sync the secrets you have in Vault Secrets with GitHub Actions. And in fact, they provide a video that shows how this works. So here, you're inside of HCP. Here are your secrets, and then you enable GitHub Actions. I know this is going quick, but you enable a GitHub app. Within GitHub, you give it sort of RBAC or role-based security access permissions to the repository. You'll notice here that the secrets are empty. You go back, you say, I'm going to propagate or sync secrets that I have in Vault to GitHub. And then after you do a refresh, notice that they show up here. So this is synchronizing the credentials you have propagated in Vault Secrets up on HCP down to and with GitHub Actions, namely repository secrets and the like. So that's pretty cool because really having to replicate and manage these things is a nightmare.
And rotate.
Yep. Yep, fun stuff. And then, like, where did we propagate this? I don't remember. It's
Yeah.
everywhere.
Who's got permission to propagate this new one?
I know. Yes. So this is really, really nice. I think this one kind of flew under the radar. I didn't hear too many people talk about this, but I'm a huge fan of Vault, and being able to synchronize with something like GitHub, I think is awesome. So kudos to them. And then finally, we've got to wrap up with this, the YDD manifesto. Did you see this?
No, I did not.
YOLO-driven development. So you only launch once. So here we go.
Yep.
All right, so embrace the unknown. Why waste time on planning, analysis, and careful consideration? YOLO-driven development thrives in the realm of ambiguity. Jump headfirst into coding. What's that?
Yep, I'm in.
That's right. You had me at hello.
Yeah.
Number 2, all-nighters over all sprints. So who needs sleep when you have a looming deadline? Forget about the delicate balance between work and life. YOLO-driven development encourages a marathon coding sessions fueled by caffeine and sheer determination. Burnout is for the weak. This speaks to me. Code first, test maybe later. Testing? Pfft, that's so last century. YDD dictates that you write code like your life depends on it, and only consider testing when the application crashes in spectacular fashion. It's not a bug, it's a feature waiting to be discovered. I love it. Duct tape and WD-40 are your allies. This speaks to me as a dad and repairer of things in my household. Complex problems require ingenious solutions. In YDD, you'll master the art of duct tape programming and WD-40 debugging. For those of you who don't know what WD-40 is, this is a lubricant, a well-known lubricant in North America. Not so well-known in other parts of the world, but you think about like a silicone lubricant or something you use to, make sure that gears don't seize up, etc. WD-40 and duct tape. These are the sort of two canonical pieces of engineering technology every middle-aged man has in his garage. So your code base will be a monument to human ingenuity, even if it's held together with a virtual spit and glue. Scope creep. There goes my voice. Scope creep is your muse. Fix scope. Nah, we prefer the thrill of never-ending scope creep. YOLO-driven development invites you to chase after ever-evolving requirements. This sounds familiar, eh?
Yeah.
Who cares about deadlines when you can chase the elusive perfection that is perpetually just around the corner? No documentation, no problem. I love it. Who needs documentation when you have the power of intuition? YDD encourages you keep your genius solutions locked away in your head. After all, real developers don't read documentation. They conjure it up from thin air. And then collaboration, chaos, teamwork, sure, but let's kick it up a notch. In YDD, collaboration is an exercise in controlled chaos. Rally your teammates with the shared goal of adding more unpredictability to the mix. Assign tasks on a whim, switch roles randomly, and merge code without warning. The resulting blend of ideas and styles will surely keep everyone on their toes. And who knows, you might just stumble upon brilliance amidst the pandemonium. So YDD. I like this. This is good.
Yeah.
It's an homage to the reality of what is software development and the processes within. We all like to speak to the fact that we're following a process and we're doing our best and we have systems, etc. But come on, you're not going to software development is an art.
The unknown is real, right?
Yes, it is. So what do you think? Are you going to adopt this? Are you going to be a convert, go around and espouse this?
I think I might have written it. in a caffeine-fueled binge. No, not really.
Stupor. That's right.
Yeah.
I love it. Awesome stuff. So that wraps up this edition of Deploy on Friday. Thanks again, Jim, for joining. It's good to see you healthy again. So it's glad to have you back, and it's good. And if you happen to see a news article or item that you'd like us to discuss, feel free to leave us a comment on wherever you're watching this, whether it's YouTube, etc. And we'll see you next time on the next edition of Deploy on Friday next week. Take care.